Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the Railway. A little while back I made a video on Hornby's worst products. Well, today, to restore some balance, I'm going to do another one about Hornby's best products, according to me. For this video I looked at all of Hornby's railway products, not just locomotives. But let's be honest, locomotives are what Hornby do best, so most of these products are locos, although not all. Also, I'm not really factoring price into this video, so in my reviews I will mark a loco down if it's super expensive, because I do think a high price can ruin a model. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the model is bad. So in today's video, I'm showing the best models regardless of price, although some of them are actually pretty reasonably priced. So with that, let's get started with the loco or product in 10th place, and you might be surprised by the choice, but it is this, the Hornby Railroad 9F. And this loco was first designed ages ago. It actually dates back to 1971. But Hornby produced this model for a great number of years. And here's what I love about this one. It's a simple loco without being cheap and nasty. I think a lot of Hornby's current railroad range locos are pretty much cheap and nasty. This one was very simple, but it was built to high standards, and as you can tell, even by today's standards, it still looks pretty great, at least from any sort of distance. It is only the body that dates back to 1971. Hornby did create a new chassis for it much later on, so the mechanism was modern, and as you can also see up close, it has been painted to modern standards with some nice complex banding and such. It was also an exciting locomotive, the 9F, the largest steam locomotive in the UK. It's a model that was very popular, and it was cheap enough so that basically anybody could afford it. I paid £70 to £80 for this back in the day, which seems impossibly reasonable by today's standards. So this is the sort of thing that I would love to see Hornby do more of. Really effective, and as far as I know, very popular. Its performance is also fantastic as well. It's a simple loco, like I say, but it's still got a top quality mechanism. 5-pole motor, proper bearings on the axles, and it's actually much more powerful than Hornby's recent and new tooled 9F. Just look at the way it's hauling this stuff up Gordon's Hill. Not even a hint of a challenge. So this was a great and accessible model. Nice and simple, not too expensive, but looked fantastic and ran excellently. Something that Hornby should definitely do more of. The loco in 9th place is a little more recent. It was first released in 2015, which means that it's just within the past 10 years. And the loco is this. It is the beautiful L&ER Hornby J15. And the thing that I love about this is that it is pure quality. Hornby do produce quite a few die-cast locomotives in their Hornby Dublo range these days, but the problem is that they charge you an extreme premium for those die-cast models. Well, not that long ago there were plenty of die-cast models in Hornby's main range, and the prices really weren't that much higher than the plastic-bodied models. So this J15 actually does have a die-cast boiler, and it's super heavy as a result, and in the hands it just feels quality. It's cold to the touch, it's really sturdy. What a fantastic model right from the off. And despite that, this thing only cost me £79 back in the day. What a good deal that was. It's also a beautiful model. It's got great detailing such as sprung buffers, a detailed cab interior with separately fitted details, and even valve gear between the frames. So it's a well detailed model. The mechanism was also top notch as well. Real quality on the inside as well as on the outside, which is another thing that I love to look out for. And as a result, yeah, the performance was fantastic, really reliable. Even almost 10 years on, I've had this a long time now, still a beautiful, powerful performer. Again, this is the sort of thing that Hornby does best. I'd love to see them do more of this. The product in 8th place then is not a locomotive. It is this, the HM7000. Now, I did run into some issues when I reviewed the Hornby HM7000, which is why it's not higher up this list. Unfortunately, Hornby made the Next 18 decoders much larger than the established standard, so they didn't fit into most of the models I tried. And on top of that, one of the decoders I tried blew up. possibly because Hornby initially claimed that they could be powered via an analog controller and then later changed their mind when the decoders started failing. So classic Hornby really, not really thrashing out a product properly before releasing it, which caused them to run into those issues. But fundamentally, I think this is a fantastic product. And when they were working properly, the decoders I tried were brilliant, really, really good. So they removed the need for a DCC controller. DCC controllers are really expensive and they can also be quite tricky to use. So to get rid of those altogether is a real bonus. Instead, you control the decoders through your smartphone, or in my case, a tablet. Most people, at the very least, have a smartphone. And that means that you can make use of those fantastic touchscreen interfaces designed by giants like Apple, who spent an absolute fortune on getting them just right, and you can bring that technology into your model railway, and it works really, really well. And because the decoders are controlled by your phone, the system is wireless via Bluetooth, which means that you can go wherever you want within reason and still control your trains. The system also gives you access to free sound effects and sound profiles that you can load onto your decoders, and if you decide to change them, you can do that, which is a lot more difficult on traditional DCC sound decoders. And most importantly of all, they are dirt cheap. Around half the price, in fact, of some DCC sound decoders. Like I say, I did have problems when I tried the HM7000, and maybe that's because I tried it right at the start. I am sure though that if I tried it again in the future, or possibly even now, a lot of those issues will have been addressed, or at least hopefully they will in the future. So HM7000, a few bumps in the road to start with, but hopefully this will blossom into one of Hornby's greatest products. On to 7th place then, and we've got to have something in this video for the diesel enthusiasts, and so the loco in 7th place is this. It is the Ruston 48 diesel shunter, which was first released in 2019. Part of the problem with some modern Hornby locos, like the Hush Hush or perhaps the A2/2, is that they are huge. And in order to produce them economically, we sometimes see Hornby cut the odd corner. They might make the bodies out of plastic, or they might use a motor that's a bit cheaper and underpowered. And on occasions where they don't cut corners, like on the Turbomotive, the model ends up just costing a fortune, and it just upsets people because they can't afford it. The Ruston is a little bit different in that it's tiny. It's such a small package that Hornby can focus in on models like this and make it as good as they possibly can without cutting any corners. Now that's not to say this is a dreadfully complex model, it's relatively simple. However, what is here has been done really well. It's beautifully painted, as you can see. It's a quality construction, most of this is made of metal, and it's well assembled too, with all of the parts nice and straight. They're not biting off more than they can chew with this model. They also have quality motors and lots of pickups, and that lets them run really well. And as you can see, they are excellent performers with some great haulage too. And this is an example of a model that's great value as well. Even today, after the prices have gone up a little bit, the RRP for this Ruston is still less than £110, and at the retailers it's even less than that. Yeah, not the best loco in Hornby's range. You can certainly find models that are more detailed and more impressive than these, but in terms of the fundamental idea, I love these things. They're affordable and they're quality. What more could you ask for? The loco in 6th place is great for pretty much all of the same reasons, except rather than being a diesel, this is a steam loco, and I bet you can guess what it is based on that. It is indeed this, the Hornby Peckett W4, and there are loads of these different W4s in tons of different liveries. And again, this loco is tiny, which allows Hornby to focus on getting everything here right, rather than having to try and find a cost-effective way of producing something colossal. I think this produces some of Hornby's best models, and here the results are stunning. Tons of different liveries available, each of them very intricate but also very different from one another. The detail is also gorgeous. You've got tons of tiny little separate parts, pipework, detailed cab interiors that look absolutely fantastic. And of course, more than that, we've got the metal construction. So again, pretty much solid metal all the way through, metal tanks, metal running plate. For a tiny loco, these weigh a ton. And given that they're not that expensive, I remember the first time when I lifted one of these up out of the packaging, I just thought, wow, what a quality model this is, so much better than some of the other larger ones. The mechanisms are very simple in these Peckets, but they're also very effective. Even though they've only got 3-pole motors, they perform beautifully, and powerfully too, of course, given the weight. And on top of all of that, these two are great value. Not quite as cheap as the Ruston, but then again they are a bit larger. Still though, much cheaper than some of Hornby's larger offerings. Moving on to 5th place then. Now, in my Hornby's worst products video, I absolutely slated their Era 1 rolling stock, and deservedly so. However, Hornby's Era 1 locomotives are different again. Stephenson's Rocket, for me, was one of Hornby's best models, but even better than that was this, the Lion. I absolutely love the Hornby Lion. First of all, just look at the livery of this. It's one of the most vibrant and elegant looking locos in Hornby's entire fleet. It's got real metal banding across the body, or what looks like it anyway. Great metal effect on the firebox, and even the top of the chimney here is real metal with a metallic finish to it. How high quality does that look? And while it may not be as heavy as the Rapido Lion, and it doesn't run as well at the slow speeds, it's still a decently reliable runner, capable of hauling a relatively heavy load. And if you do the maths, it's also quite a bit cheaper than Rapidos, although unfortunately you still have to buy it as part of a train pack. If they made this available by itself like they had with the Tiger, and look at the price of Tiger by itself by the way, and that's the RRP. So if they did that with Lion and could achieve a similar price, this would also be an incredibly good value model. The model in 4th place does have a bit of a subjective element to it. It is fantastic, I do think the model is objectively great, but possibly my love for this thing has influenced where it's appeared on this list. But we'll see what you think. So the loco is this. It is the Hornby Merchant Navy class in sort of original condition with the air-smoothed casing. First of all, just what an incredible prototype this is. Bulleid's locomotives were wonderfully unusual and quite obviously unique. Nothing else looks quite like the Merchant Navy class, apart from, I guess, the West Country and Battle of Britain, but those are Bulleid designs too. Here we have the model presented in the excellent BR Blue, which has been finished to a very high standard. It's also an excellently detailed loco with these Bulleid wheels. I love the Bulleid wheels, and Hornby always do them brilliantly. It's got separate metal nameplates, which is a high quality touch, and it's got detail even inside the chimney, which is an unusual feature. Can't think of another loco that actually has detail inside the chimney like that. And of course it's got an incredibly detailed cab, one of the best cabs in model form that I've seen. For me though, it's really the performance of this that really elevates it. It's got a massive flywheel inside, and it's a huge heavy loco too, yet it runs super powerfully, really smoothly, and it's genuinely one of the best runners in my collection. Hornby have neglected the Southern Railway a little bit of late, but this loco shows how right they can get them when they do put their mind to it, so hopefully there will be more Southern from Hornby very soon. The product in 3rd place really is one of Hornby's signature pieces. It is this, the new P2, specifically in the original or rebuilt condition. I think that was the best of the new P2s. This thing was a massive step up from the older railroad version. It now has tons of separate details, so all of this pipework along the boiler, this is now separately fitted. All of the running plate detail is now either separately fitted or picked out with the paint, and it looks so much finer as a result. It's also been finished much better than before with this beautiful satin finish, and in fact this is one of the best liveries you can get on a Hornby loco. They really nailed it this time. It's also got the fully detailed cab, complete with lighting, which is a feature that Hornby now add to most of their new locos. It's also a much better performer than the original railroad one. It's pretty powerful, and it's got such a presence on the track. It really does look amazing as it runs. Now, if you're being objective about this loco, which I was in my review, it is extremely expensive, and it's hard to say that this was worth what it cost. However, watch it zoom past you with an express train, and you really do feel your mind changing on that. So it cost a bit too much. You know, if I'm incorporating value into my thoughts on this, then yeah, I would say it's too expensive, but as a model in its own right, this thing is absolutely tremendous, and I have no shame at all in saying that I love it. So now we come to the top two Hornby products. It is another LNER locomotive, and I think it's fair to say that Hornby's best locos are LNER ones. I'm sure plenty would prefer that not to be the case and that other members of the Big Four would get some love, but if you're an LNER fan, Hornby are a really good company for you. And the loco in second place then is this. It is the Hornby B12. And this loco for me is just stunning. It's not the newest, it came out for the first time in 2016 I believe, but the quality of this is just extreme. So again, we've got a die-cast boiler. A large loco this time, still got the die-cast body though. That is such a quality feature. And look at the decoration as well. Quite a complex livery on this, and it's been achieved pretty much perfectly. Possibly one of the best examples of LNER green that I've ever seen. It also captures the essence of the prototype extremely faithfully, and as I'm sure you can tell, this has masses of great detail. The mechanism and performance are just top notch as well. This thing looks incredible as it runs along with passenger coaches, and I think later batches of this, such as my black one that I've got, had motor issues and problems like that. I have to say this one that I bought from the initial batch had no such problems. It still runs perfectly today. And while the latest RRPs for these are quite expensive, from what I remember I did not pay that much for this one. Can't remember exactly what I paid, but it was somewhere between 100 and 150 quid. Even if it's at the top end of that spectrum, that's still a very, very competitive price by today's standards. So there you have it, the Hornby B12, a fantastic quality loco, which has always been one of my favourites. So here we are at the top then. We come to Hornby's best product according to me. Now this is subjective and I hope you'll forgive me for it, but hear me out. It is another LNER locomotive, apologies, but it is this one, the Hornby A1, specifically the newly upgraded version of this model. So this tooling actually dates back to 2006, but a couple of years ago Hornby made some massive changes to the model which made it incredible in my opinion. So the older batches of these used to have plastic running plates and they had an inclination to warp. Well, Hornby fixed that on this latest batch by making the running plate die-cast. That also improved the weight of the loco too, so that they're nice and heavy now. They also made a massive upgrade to the livery as well. What a great finish this model has now, and the top of the boiler has been fixed as well. They used to look quite messy with visible seam lines, well now that's been cured. It's also such a good quality model with its metal safety valves, beautifully produced valve gear and wheel set, and a plethora of intricate detail that has been perfectly fitted. The cab has also had an upgrade. There's some beautiful detail in there, and it now has a working light, which is also great to see. And it's tricky because objectively maybe this model isn't the best because it cost a fortune, and I'm not sure it was worth what it cost, but when I start thinking about what I think Hornby's best product is, I always start thinking about these because they just look so sublime. As an express passenger loco, the performance is great as well. Just like the P2 and the B12, with a passenger train, this looks stunning hauling a rake of coaches. Now this loco is Doncaster, but obviously this tooling can be used to produce a whole host of different A1s and A3s, and included among them of course is the Flying Scotsman, the most famous steam locomotive in the world, and to see Hornby now able to produce one of those to such high standards is really a joy, I think. So while this loco may not be perfect on paper, I've seen slightly better crawlers, I've seen slightly better quality, and I've certainly paid less for high-spec locos. But in terms of just loving a model, I think for me, this one wins it. So this, in my opinion, all things considered, is Hornby's greatest product. What a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. So that's my top 10. What do you think of that top 10? What are your favourite Hornby products, and are there any that I missed out of this video that you think deserve to be included? If so, please do comment down below and let me know. For now though, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you very, very soon for some more videos. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.